said, I'm going to tell you the truth about life. Nobody knows when they're going to go or when they're going to stay. I said, your brother left at 16, too young. Your mother left at 57, that was too young. But who's to say? I said, I could die tomorrow. You could, anybody can. I said, so let's look at life that it's part of life.
John Travolta's life has played out like a Hollywood script no one would dare write. He shot to superstardom in the 1970s, vanished from the center of the spotlight, then pulled off one of the most unforgettable comebacks in Hollywood history. But the real story was never just about fame. Behind the spotlight were devastating losses that changed everything. So how did John Travolta keep going after losses that felt like a sentence with no appeal? And what does his journey reveal about the man behind one of Hollywood's most enduring legends? Join us as we uncover the full story of John Travolta, the kid born to perform. Way before the world knew who John Travolta was, there was a restless teenage boy in New Jersey who seemed to understand one thing with clarity. He was not meant to spend his life standing still. In the Travolta household, performance was not treated as a distant dream reserved for lucky people in Hollywood. It was woven into ordinary life, into conversations, music, rehearsals, and the constant encouragement to step into the spotlight. John was the youngest of 6 children, and every one of them was drawn toward performing in some way. His father, Salvatore, ran a tire company, grounding the family in practical reality. But his mother, Helen, carried something different into their home. She had once been a singer and actress, and she passed her love for performance to her children with an intensity that made the stage feel more like a calling. By the time John was 16, that calling had become impossible to ignore. He left Dwight Morrow High School and moved to New York, a decision that could have looked reckless to anyone watching from the outside. But to John, it felt like the only honest choice. He found an agent, auditioned relentlessly, and began building a career piece by piece. His first opportunities came quickly. As a teenager, he joined the touring company of Grease. A show later became inseparable from his name. He performed in Over Here, appeared in commercials, and slowly gathered the experience that would prepare him for something much bigger. Then, in 1975, television changed everything. John was cast as Vinnie Barbarino in Welcome Back, Kotter. He played the cocky, charming student with such natural ease that audiences immediately gravitated toward him. By the second season, he was receiving more fan mail than anyone else on the show. Hollywood had noticed. But before the world knew his name, John experienced a heartbreak that would shape him in ways success never could. So who was the woman he loved before Hollywood ever had the chance to claim him? The loss nobody saw coming. In 1976, while Welcome Back, Kotter was still airing and John's career was beginning to rise, he met actress Diana Hyland on the set of The Boy in the Plastic Bubble. She played his mother in the film. But somewhere between the scenes and the long hours on set, their connection became something neither of them expected. Diana was 38 years old, while John was 22. The 18-year age gap attracted attention, but those who knew them said their relationship was deeply genuine. Diana had already been diagnosed with breast cancer when they fell in love, and neither of them tried to pretend that reality did not exist. They chose each other anyway. For about a year, they built a relationship that John described as one of the most meaningful of his life. Then, in March 1977, Diana's illness worsened. John was filming Saturday Night Fever at the time, but when he learned she was in her final days, he flew back to be with her. He was holding her hand when she died. Just months later, Saturday Night Fever was released. The film became a cultural explosion, earning more than $237 million worldwide against a budget of just $3.5 million. It transformed disco into a global phenomenon and turned John Travolta into one of the biggest movie stars in the world. His performance earned him an Academy Awards nomination for Best Actor, making him one of the youngest actors ever recognized in that category. But while audiences were celebrating Tony Manero's dance moves, John was mourning the woman he loved. Then came Grease in 1978. Starring alongside Olivia Newton-John, John helped create one of the most successful movie musicals in cinema history. The film grossed nearly $400 million worldwide and cemented his status as the most commercially powerful young star in Hollywood. At 24, John had everything most actors spend a lifetime chasing: an Oscar nomination, 2 record-breaking films, and a level of fame that seemed almost unreal. And yet, the woman who had held his heart before the world knew his name was not there to witness any of it. What should have been the beginning of an unstoppable rise soon turned into one of the strangest career descents in Hollywood history. The decade where Hollywood forgot his name. By the early 1990s, something strange began happening to John Travolta's career. The same actor who had once been the biggest box office draw in Hollywood suddenly found himself in a position no one could have predicted. Studios were no longer certain that his name could sell a movie. It did not happen overnight. After Grease and Saturday Night Fever, John still seemed untouchable. Urban Cowboy performed reasonably well in 1980, and for a moment, it looked as though his streak might continue. But then, the pattern changed. Blowout in 1981, Staying Alive in 1983, Two of a Kind in 1983, and Perfect in 1985 all struggled to connect with audiences in the way his earlier films had. None of them erased his talent, but together they created a reputation that was hard to ignore. John Travolta was no longer a guaranteed hit. Part of the problem was that Hollywood kept trying to recreate the version of him that audiences had already fallen in love with. Instead of allowing him to evolve, many of the projects seemed designed to repeat the same charm, the same swagger, and the same late 1970s energy that had made him famous in the first place. But audiences had changed, and the culture had moved on. Then came the decisions that would haunt his career in hindsight. John was offered the lead role in Forrest Gump, a part that eventually went to Tom Hanks and became one of the most celebrated performances in film history. He was also offered a role in American Gigolo, which ultimately helped turn Richard Gere into a major star. Looking back, those choices seem catastrophic. But at the time, John was making decisions with the same uncertainty every actor faces. No one can see the future while they are living it. By the early 1990s, the decline had become impossible to deny. His asking price had dropped dramatically from the heights of his late 1970s fame. He began appearing in films that went directly to home video, and the career that once looked unstoppable was now difficult to distinguish from a career that was quietly ending. Yet while his professional life was becoming increasingly uncertain, his personal life was beginning to take shape in a much more hopeful way. In 1987, John met Kelly Preston on the set of The Experts, and they instantly clicked. They got married in 1991, and in 1992, they welcomed their first child, Jet Travolta. So, at the exact moment Hollywood seemed to be turning away from him, John was building something real and lasting at home. A marriage, a family, and a life that mattered far beyond the box office. And then, in 1994, one phone call changed everything. The most dramatic career resurrection in Hollywood history. The story of how John Travolta came to be cast in Pulp Fiction is one of the more entertaining origin stories in 90s cinema. And it involves a director who specifically wanted someone whose career had been written off. Quentin Tarantino had seen Blowout and thought John was an extraordinary performer who had been let down by material rather than by any deficit of talent. When he was developing Pulp Fiction, he specifically sought out actors whose commercial standing did not reflect their actual ability. He offered John the role of Vincent Vega, a hitman who has a now iconic conversation about a foot massage and who dies in a bathroom reading a paperback thriller. And John accepted for a fraction of what he had earned at his peak. Pulp Fiction premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in May 1994 and won the Palme d'Or, the festival's highest honor. It was released in American cinemas in October 1994 and earned $213 million against a budget of $8 million. It received 7 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture and Best Director. John Travolta was nominated for Best Actor, his second career Oscar nomination, 16 years after his first. The response to John's performance was not simply positive. It was a collective reckoning with the distance between what Hollywood had been doing with him for a decade and what he was actually capable of. The dancing scene with Uma Thurman, the conversation in the diner, the bathroom sequence, all of it showed a performer operating with a precision and a looseness simultaneously that very few actors can sustain, and that had been completely absent from the diminished material he had been attached to throughout the career decline. He was suddenly everywhere again. He went from a question mark to a first call, from someone studios hesitated over to someone they competed for. The decade of professional difficulty had not diminished what was there. It had simply been waiting for someone to give it the right material. The second career peak lasted into the early 2000s, and then personal tragedy arrived in a form that no career peak and no amount of professional satisfaction could prepare anyone for. The worst thing that ever happened to him. The tragedy that changed John Travolta's life forever happened far away from Hollywood, in a place that was supposed to be a refuge. On January 2, 2009, John, Kelly Preston, and their children were vacationing in the Bahamas. Their eldest son, Jet Travolta, was 16 years old. That morning, Jet suffered a seizure in the bathroom of the family's vacation home. He fell, hit his head, and was rushed to a local hospital. He did not recover. Jet had a history of seizures and had been diagnosed with autism. Kelly had spoken publicly about her belief that environmental factors, including chemicals in food and the environment, could contribute to autism more broadly. But while the medical circumstances of Jet's death were documented, the emotional devastation it left behind was impossible to measure. For John and Kelly, the loss was not something that could be explained away by facts or timelines. It was the sudden disappearance of a child they loved deeply, a grief that entered their family and changed every room, every memory, and every future plan. Years later, in 2014, John spoke about Jet's death during a public appearance at Theatre Royal Drury Lane in London. He called it the worst thing that had ever happened in his life. He admitted that, for a period after Jet died, he did not know if he was going to make it. Life, he said, no longer felt interesting to him. It was one of the rare moments when John allowed the public to see the full weight of his sorrow. What eventually helped him survive that darkness, by his own account, was a combination of faith, the support of the Church of Scientology, and the unwavering presence of his family. Then, something unexpected happened. At 48 years old, Kelly became pregnant again. The news was widely reported as a surprise, and in November 2010, just a year and a half after Jet's death, she gave birth to their son, Benjamin Travolta. John called Benjamin a miracle. He later described Benjamin's arrival as a kind of glue for the family, something that helped rebond them after they had been shattered by loss. Watching his son grow up became one of the most sustaining experiences of John's later life. In the years that followed, John, Kelly, Ella Blue Travolta, and Benjamin built a quieter, more intentionally cherished life together. They understood, with painful clarity, how quickly joy could be taken away. And then, just as they had begun to heal, another loss arrived that John could never have prepared for. Kelly was taken from him too. Kelly Preston's 2-year secret. In July 2020, John Travolta shared news that stunned the world. Kelly Preston had died after a 2-year battle with breast cancer. She was 57 years old. What made the announcement even more shocking was that no one outside their closest circle had known she was ill. For 2 years, John and Kelly had kept her diagnosis entirely private, an almost impossible thing to do in a world where celebrity lives are constantly exposed. Kelly had continued working, attending events, and living her life without publicly revealing the battle she was quietly fighting. In his Instagram post, John shared a photograph of Kelly with their children, Ella Blue Travolta and Benjamin Travolta. He wrote that Kelly had fought a courageous fight with the love and support of so many. He called her "my love" and "the joy of our lives," and spoke of their belief that they were on a spiritual journey together and would meet again. He also asked for privacy as he and his children processed the loss. John and Kelly had been married since 1991, 28 years of shared life. Together, they experienced the births of Jet, Ella, and Benjamin, the unimaginable loss of Jet in 2009, the highs and lows of John's career, and, finally, Kelly's private fight against cancer, which John supported by her side without revealing it to the public. Later, when John spoke about Kelly's death, he did so with the same plain honesty that has marked the way he speaks about grief. He said that losing Jet had been the worst thing that had ever happened to him, and losing Kelly was the second worst. He did not soften the statement or search for a more comfortable way to say it. In the years since Kelly's passing, John and Ella have spoken about leaning on each other through their grief. Ella has described her father as deeply protective of her music career, explaining that his experience in both film and music has helped him guide her through an industry he understands intimately. Their bond has become one of the most sustaining parts of John's life after loss. Benjamin, who was only 10 when his mother died, is now a teenager. John frequently shares photographs of him with visible pride and joy. In January 2025, he posted a New Year photo with Ella and Benjamin, a simple image that quietly revealed where his heart is now, with his children, his family, and the life they continue to build together. John Travolta at 71. When John Travolta turned 71 on February 18, 2026, the milestone carried a weight that most birthdays never do. He was not just celebrating another year. He was living as a man who had experienced 2 extraordinary career resurrections, endured the loss of a child and a wife within 11 years, and spent the last 5 years raising his 2 surviving children largely as a single parent. And through all of it, he had never stopped working. In March 2025, his film High Rollers was released, following the 2024 action film Cash Out. Outside of acting, John's greatest passion has long been aviation. He is a licensed pilot who owns and flies his own aircraft, including a Boeing 707 maintained at his home on a private airstrip in Ocala, Florida. Flying has been part of his life since the 1970s, and over 5 decades, it has become far more than a celebrity hobby. It is a genuine expertise, a source of peace, and one of the few places where he has said he feels completely free. His daughter, Ella Blue Travolta, has begun building her own artistic path. In November 2024, she released her debut EP, Colors of Love, dedicating it to her late mother, Kelly Preston. John has been her most visible supporter, attending her events and speaking about her with the unmistakable pride of a father watching his child become someone extraordinary. Financially, John has achieved a level of security that reflects decades of success. His net worth has been estimated at approximately $250 million, built through blockbuster films, careful management of his income, and significant real estate holdings, including his unique Florida property with its private airstrip. But wealth has never seemed to lessen his desire to work, to fly, or to be present for his children. John has made it clear that he intends to keep flying for as long as he is able. He intends to keep taking on projects that genuinely interest him, rather than chasing some carefully calculated career strategy. And he intends to keep honoring Jet and Kelly in the small, consistent ways that have become part of his life. Birthday messages, anniversary tributes, and private words shared in public. Which part of John Travolta's story do you think the public has misunderstood the most? And after hearing his full journey, do you think John Travolta's greatest legacy is his legendary career, or the strength he showed in continuing to live, love, and support his family after unimaginable loss? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.